Welcome back to a new episode of D-League. Today, 5th episode, so halfway there to the 10th anniversary.
Oh yeah.
Today, Bilal and we will talk about music and sound effects in video games and how important they are for the game. And so Bilal, let's start with talking about music, because I think it's probably the well, not more important, but the less subtle thing about sound design in a video game.
Certainly has more attention.
Yeah. So, when you think of music in video games, what comes to mind first for you?
Well,
is it like, yeah? Go on. Sorry.
I mean, yeah. I think, yeah. When I think music, I think mostly. Actually, I kind of always will think back to like RTS games because, that's what I'm into mostly. And I thought it was always interesting, how the music kind of goes between all the different factions and if you're battling and whatever's going on in the storyline. And I mean, yeah, I kind of just think about it typically either something that's like more symphony or orchestral, something like that, or more of a like electronic or industrial kind of music that's supposed to sound more cool and slick in like a more futuristic RTS game. So I think mostly those genres and situations are like what I think of mostly. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When I think of video game music, then there are some games that have really, I think, like let's say, legendary or really famous soundtracks. And I think one of the most famous is maybe the old Doom, the 1990 Doom, Doom 1 and Doom 2, where they used pretty much metal music as inspiration, or they pretty much just copied some parts from some songs. And so the game kind of had this metal or rock vibe. But because it's an action shooter, it really sets the atmosphere for the game. But then it's not all like power rock music. But also you had some really slow-paced, slow-paced songs, or where they wanted to kind of set a more spooky atmosphere. Where it's a shooter, but because of the monsters, it's also kind of horror. So in the more darker levels, they also used slower, more like darker themed songs.
Yeah.
And so even if you have a shotgun, then you think, oh, maybe there's something waiting around the next corner, and so you're kind of scared.
Yeah, because I remember those levels. There was some levels would just have tons and tons of monsters, and then some of the levels would just be you're kind of solving a puzzle or walking through something, and then you have like more, you'll see them less often, the enemies, and there's like I do remember. I remember one track specifically that was, in some of those levels basically that you just described, where there were just fewer monsters.
Yeah. So, yeah, and also, for example, the first Resident Evil games. So like Resident Evil 1, it kind of impacted me a lot, because it's a horror game, and I played it as a child or watched people play. So even if you didn't have the soundtrack playing in the background, then the game would not be that scary, because you only have like zombies in not even every room, and just this more classic, like the violin and the slow-paced music. It really sets this horror feeling. So it's not that you are running around fighting zombies and zombie dogs and whatever. I think the main atmosphere came from the music actually. So
Mm.
like even in Resident Evil 3, where you try to escape from Raccoon City, which has been overrun by zombies, they have this really slow, subtle music that sounds really sad, but it's not just like slow, but then they switch the pace of the music as well, and they also implemented like some um, low volume moans in the music.
Uh,
So yeah, you really think, okay, this city is doomed. I need to escape,
mhm.
but there are monsters. Like even the music tells you, yeah, there are monsters around, and it's really like a sad atmosphere, um, which you well in a game where it's about survival and escaping, uh, is kind of um, well, you could do it like Doom. You could just say, okay, you need to escape, shoot everything, here's some rock music. But
Yeah.
because Capcom wanted to keep this more survival horror, well, I mean, it's survival horror. Um, this feeling, they went for slow paced, really subtle music. Um, so, well, you just feel more scared or you feel like desperate.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a common thing in horror. Actually, one thing that's interesting is like um, to go to like use Prey, the new Prey as as a quick example. They're the parts where you have to hide. They'll have sometimes when you're just walking around and you're not fighting anything. Fighting is more of an active thing, so like it's less scary in my opinion. I think it's more like thrilling than when you're hiding from something, which I think is more scary. And they'll have this music that's kind of like it's very unsettling music that's like dun dun dun, and it's like it's hard to describe. Like where it's kind of slow, but then has high, I guess, like points where they all of a sudden will like pop in with like this kind of off rhythm beat that's a little bit unsettling, I guess, for humans.
Hmm.
And yes, yeah, it's actually really important, I think, in horror. So yeah, I mean, I haven't played the old Resident Evils, but I did notice that in like all the horror games that I play, they always have like a huge effect on it, and like the
Yeah.
atmosphere, or on like the parts where things will pop out, or if you
Mm,
enter like combat, basically like you get unsettled in a different way each time. I think.
yeah. I think or what I remember now is that even in games like Silent Hill, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill had that theme where like the music stops and then
Mm.
something happens like in Resident Evil 1, a dog jumps through the window and then it's really fast music, so da 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 da. So
Yeah.
you feel like panic. And
Hmm.
in Silent Hill, in Silent Hill 1 they had a similar thing where like a flying monster comes through the window in the cafe. So they also kind of use this element of silence. So you think, oh yeah, nothing's gonna happen, and then when you do something, then suddenly it's this loud, fast music, and this switch of pace
Hmm.
um, makes you panic. Like you said, like if the music um, has a strange rhythm or something changes, then
Yeah.
you think, oh no, something happened. Like, oh no, the monster saw me, or like
Yeah.
you somebody found you. So yeah.
Hmm.
Um, also,
Because
because you talked to, yeah,
sorry, go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah,
Um,
I'll just say really quick. Yeah, I'll just say really quick. The Yeah, on the topic of off rhythm, yeah, it's because if you notice, like everything, like humans are really rhythmic creatures, and so like if you're listening to a song, for example, and you're walking down the street, like you'll find yourself, wanting to walk to the beat even. So I think that's where like an off rhythm effect really brings out the kind of creepiness because we want it to be rhythmic, but when it's off rhythm, then it like kind of throws you off. It's like whoa, what's going on here? And it both raises your awareness, I think, and also like weirds you out a little bit. But but yeah, go on.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to RTS, so strategy games,
Yeah.
because I think, well, I think in RTS, music is kind of setting well, not the mood, but it gives nations or races that you are using a different feel, even by the music, because I mean the interface is the same. Maybe there's a different skin, so the menu just looks a bit different. But because of the music, you feel like, oh yeah, the aliens are like gooey, or they have this really strange music.
Yes.
Or for example, in KKND 2, or what is it, Crush, Kill, and Destroy.
Yeah.
You have normal humans and the evolved, so like mutant humans, and they have this really strange soundtrack with more like tribal elements as well included, while the Terrans or the normal humans, they have this more rock like rock or techno music. And then you have in KKND2 you also have like robots, so they have music that fits more like a robot faction. I mean, it's more really heavy techno.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so even in RTS, in RTS it kind of gives more character to the faction you're using, I think.
Yeah, it makes you want to play it more, I think. The first time I think I experienced that in an RTS, or at least I I admired it a lot, was the game Universe at War, Earth Assault, and so there are three factions. There's the hierarchy, which is this faction that wants to basically they go around, cleanse a planet, and then use all its resources just to sustain themselves, right? So like kind of a selfish, destroy everything to exist faction. And then you have Masari, which are this faction that actually made the hierarchy, and then the hierarchy kind of betrayed them, right? And so they're supposed to be like a kind of more godly or holy faction. And then you have the Novus, which are like robots, and they're supposed to be, a just faction, and they kind of represent like keeping order, so they want to stop the hierarchy, right? And I think they do a good job of how the music reflects all of that, because the Masari kind of has this music. They all have battle transition music and whatnot, but they all have a music that represents them. So the hierarchy, like once you enter battle, you start hearing like heavy rock and drumming and all this, because it's like they're supposed to be these awesome like aliens that destroy everything, right? And so the Novus they all have like a kind of awesome battle music, but the Novus they have this kind of more music that's it's more techno-y / electronic. And like, because they're like future robots, and it kind of makes you feel like they're in control of things. I feel like it kind of adds like an order idea to their faction. And finally, like with Masari, obviously they have that more holy kind of music where you can hear like what's the word? Like a choir in the background, like singing basically. As things happen, so like a more inspirational kind of holy choir. But yeah. So I thought that was very cool. I used to play hierarchy all the time, and I thought the rock music was great. When you like, one of them was like called Damage King, one of the tracks, and it was literally exactly what it sounds like heavy guitar and rock. So, but yeah, I thought they did a good job there with adding character by that.
Yeah, I think there there are many games that have a really good soundtrack that really fits the game, or for me at least, it's something where I just go back and listen to the soundtrack actually. So where I just go to some video platform, or maybe there are some soundtrack CDs that you can buy or download, and I just listen to the music. And if it's an old game that I played in my childhood, then it gives me this nostalgic feeling.
Oh yeah.
It's something you know, and for me, no matter how old the game is, after a few minutes you just remember everything, like the whole soundtrack and what which scene is, well, you are at that point, or what's happening at that point in the game. So you kind of just like you just listen to the music and you go through the game in your head again. So I
Yeah.
think music is really really powerful in video games, and not only for this nostalgic feeling, but also because it even attracts people to play a game. I think if the music is really well done, of course in a horror game it's more difficult because it needs to fit the atmosphere more than having it people enjoy listening to.
Yeah.
But for example, if you have something like Doom, or maybe you have StarCraft, or Command and Conquer. Command and Conquer, the old games also had really good soundtrack. You just put on the music and you think, yeah, I want to play the game again, or maybe somebody says, yeah, I want to play that game. The soundtrack is really awesome. I think a good example is maybe Undertale, where some songs became really popular online. So if it becomes popular when the game is new, then people think, oh, I haven't heard about that game, and I like the soundtrack. So yeah, I'll watch some videos about the game, or maybe a trailer, or the intro to the game, and then they say, oh yeah, that looks interesting. Let's see what else is in the game. Maybe there are some more soundtracks I enjoy. And
Yeah.
I think with Undertale you had the what was it, Megalovania theme, where you fight Sans in the what is it, the if you don't kill any enemy, no, if you kill all enemies, all characters you encounter, then you get this super difficult boss fight with this music, and that became pretty popular online, I think, or at least that's how I actually heard about the game for the first time.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't actually played it, so I don't know, but that's really interesting that you found it through the music.
Yeah, I mean, it can be the same way for pretty much every game. I think even if it's Doom, then you think that sounds like this metal track, and let's see what other tracks they kind of covered on a really old computer with a terrible sound chip, where you didn't have like MP3 files that could play, or that were made using real guitars or something. I mean, it was just a sound chip that well, kind of played the music, and it has this in actually it has this special feeling, at least for me, where I mean, if you take a look at 8-bit or 16-bit games, also on like Nintendo or Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn. No, Sega Saturn was 32-bit, I think. Uh, Master System and Genesis, I think. Some people really enjoy the music because it does not sound like a real guitar. It's just a sound chip that kind of sounds like a guitar, but well, it's not realistic. So it just sounds different. So you also have these people that enjoy these um, old school sound chip music.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And yeah,
How we
even now you have. Yes,
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say we kind of. It's interesting how like, from an objective standpoint, like the thing that's less progressive or like did a worse job, we actually like enjoy it more, and thus turn it into something that made it do a better job. Kind of like if you think it's interesting to like watch a video that like has weird video effects or like low quality and it attempts to look kind of 90s just because like things used to look a certain way. So it's interesting to see it happen again. Just like if you listen to like 8-bit music or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if now indie studios still go for chip
Yeah.
tune music in their games, if it's more 8-bit graphic style, so they want to keep it like the graphic style is old school, so keep the music old school as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and well, that's another point I want to mention about music. I guess because we talk about esport games a lot,
Yeah.
I think music is also really important if nothing much is happening in the game yet. Because just imagine watching a strategy game where you have action after 5 minutes. And if you didn't have music, then you would just have the commentators, which is kind of bland, I think. Just imagine, let's say, even Dota 2, where the heroes are just running around trying to hit creeps to gain gold. If you didn't have this, how would you actually describe the music? It's more like
It's kind of an
battle theme music.
kind of like a battle symphony-ish thing. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
I haven't listened to it in a while.
Yeah, so if you didn't have that, I think the game would be also more bland. So you don't notice it at first, but it's there. As long as you hear something, I think it's better for the spectators as well. So they don't get bored, or maybe they think, okay, maybe the sound is broken. Like they have the sound effect, but they don't have any music or like the BGM playing.
Yeah, I think.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's actually. I think in esports it's funny because like I mean the music in general, like in my opinion, isn't as exciting as like other video games that are like less gameplay focused. But I think it's easy to take them for granted because they kind of provide a subconscious experience that you're not really paying attention to the music, but if it wasn't there, think about how awkward the game would be. Like in Dota, when you destroy an ancient, you get like this choir that's like singing really loud, and there's what is the instrument? I think it might just be like I don't know, there's some kind of like horn sounding thing that they have a tune as soon as you destroy an ancient and a choir just starts singing. And if that wasn't there, like imagine how much more bland it would seem to destroy an ancient.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, somebody like a pro might turn it off, but it's there. I mean, obviously for the experience of people who are more interested in that sort of thing, or maybe they're not as competitive.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to sound effects then. Um, I mean, when you talk about sound effects, well, we talked about music, so now we are gonna talk about all the boom and pew 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 and whoosh
Supplements.
and yeah, um, and what?
I was gonna say, I remember. Oh god, there was this ad on like becoming a game developer, or no, a game tester. It's like get paid to play games, right? And in the ad, these guys they're sitting here playing this game, and they have this little soundboard on their side, and like one of them, I think he taps a button and it makes the most ridiculous noise, and he like says to the designer, he's like, make sure to include this sound in level 5. I'm sorry, but it was just the most like corny thing, and he just reminded me of that.
Okay. So let's talk about the importance of sound effects. I mean,
Yeah.
we are not sound designers, so
Mm-hmm.
or at least I know it can be really difficult to make good sound effects.
Yeah.
And the sound designers do really weird stuff to create them. Like if you punch somebody in the face, then maybe they use a banana and squish it real hard. So or something like that, or they just throw stuff on the ground, or maybe I think I saw something like a zombie eating somebody, so eating flesh. So they used a watermelon and they just squished the insides of the watermelon, and then they spat it up or they arranged the sound a bit to make it sound like a zombie eating flesh.
Wow.
So yeah, okay. So for anyone that's an aspiring sound artist, yeah, get creative. But so for me, sound effects they kind of give impact to everything that happens in the game. For example, if you have, let's say, a rocket launcher, then you need. I mean, you always have a real life experience or something you expect to happen. So if you shoot the rocket launcher, then you expect it to go like when shooting, like boom, and then the rocket flies. So it's more like a whoosh sound maybe, and then of course you need a boom again when the rocket explodes. So let's just imagine a rocket launcher doing like a duck sound when shooting. So it's like so it's like it doesn't fit, or maybe like this clown nose noises.
Yeah.
This sound.
Uh-huh.
So it wouldn't. You would not expect the rocket launcher to make that sound. So then you think, huh, that's strange.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit at all.
I mean, I'd be having a great time. I'd probably play that. I mean, honestly, I'd probably play that game a lot more. But but no, it would not exactly fit.
I mean, if it was a duck launcher, then
Yeah.
of course it could make duck sounds. But yeah, just it's always. I think the difficulty is to have a sound that fits something, but if it's like an item or a character or some monster that doesn't exist in real life, I mean, you would have any option, like every option you want to use for a sound. But for example, if you have an orc, I mean, an orc does not exist in real life, but if you have this bulky, muscular monster, you need to make it sound like it's intimidating, right? So maybe it would be kind of like a bear growling, uh, just more, maybe more human.
Hmm.
And I guess that's you can describe sounds, but I, I think for a sound designer, it's really difficult to find the sound that kind of that fits this monster
Mm.
or this weapon, and it's what I well I already said what my point, but
Yeah.
um in like satisfying the expectations of the player can be quite difficult, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think there's one guy I watched actually he did this pack that that man, I love this pack. It's like a universal sound effects pack, and it's absolutely amazing for concepting games. And he actually has some videos. His name is like Infenzia. He has some videos on YouTube of him setting up his room and recording different noises. And I think it was one video of him literally sitting like next to a railroad as a train comes by, holding up his boom mic to it. It's really it's very cool actually to see the kind of stuff that he does and like how he set up his room for like recording any kind of sound, like be it I don't know, like sound effects that you make with your mouth, or anything really, or maybe squeezing a rubber ducky for a duck launcher, but but no, yeah, it's very, I don't know, actually, like seriously, very cool to see.
Yeah, for me, when I saw some videos, like I said, it's you hear the sounds in the game, and then it's not something you expect. You would, like I said, you would maybe expect them to use meat for flesh, but then it's a watermelon or stuff like that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, because they're not always accurate, but I mean, I think, yeah, it's more important to make sure that it kind of reflects what you're trying to say in your game. Like, do you want this to seem really grotesque? If yes, then emphasizing it to be unrealistic is fine. Obviously, yeah, use a watermelon if it's going to sound more zombie eating flesh like. But for example, if you want a game to be incredibly realistic, then maybe you want to see the best way to get like gunshot noises in your game. Like maybe, I mean, I have no idea. Maybe even recording a real gunshot. I don't know. But
yeah, I guess you could just go to a gun range and
yeah,
record.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I think it's most important to like think about what you're trying to communicate through your sounds as a game developer or sound designer to decide what it's going to be made out of or how you're going to record it.
Yeah, I think something one also needs to pay attention to is what you are actually like, what the thing you are making a sound for actually looks like. So, for example, if you have a laser, then for example in machines, well, nobody's probably going to understand what I'm explaining, but machines, you have laser weapons where they shoot like more crystal shaped lasers.
Yeah.
But then, for example, in StarCraft 2, with the Colossus, you have this laser beam, and like the lasers go more like the lasers in machines go like pew pew pew.
Yeah.
But then in StarCraft 2, with the beam, it's more like a humming sound.
Yeah,
so,
like a vibration.
Yeah, like, and what I want to say is that like probably StarCraft 2 is more realistic.
Yeah.
With laser physics, but if like the game designers break the physics, the real life physics, then I guess it's also fine to
Yeah,
break the rules of sound. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
lasers are just light. So if something is traveling at a fast speed, then either it's like a high pitched noise, I guess, or like this humming sound from StarCraft 2.
Yeah, exactly.
But somehow people already know like the pew 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 sound, maybe from the old Star Wars movies.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they just know, yeah, that's a laser. I mean, there's no like laser gun that shoots lasers that looks like crystals.
Yeah, I mean, if you
But
look at Star Wars, like, what even is that? It's not a laser. So, I don't know.
yeah, or mine. I mean, you had the lightsaber in Star Wars, and then afterwards, people actually researched the physics. Could the lightsaber actually work? And then they would say like, yeah, it could work, but it would not end like after 1 meter.
Yeah,
It would extend until like the light fades and
exactly.
something like that. So yeah, um, in this case, like the movie creators, they broke the rules of physics because well, it's imagination, right? It's not about being the most real movie or the most real game. It's about, okay, we're in the future and these guys need swords. So yeah, it's gonna be a light pole that hums. So and in video games, I think it's kind of the same where you say, okay, we want to have it shoot energy ball projectiles, and it's shaped like a grenade, so it's condensed light, which is kind of impossible. But so when it hits something, so it explodes, and then it's like this energy explosion
Yeah.
sound. So I mean, if you would give it the same sound as a rocket, uh, then people would be confused again because they would say, "Wait, that sounds like a rocket."
Yeah.
So you need to use something else. And so yeah, for I think there's like a specific sound people expect for everything actually.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, like, yeah. Man, if they had a guy who was into physics on like the Star Wars cast team, they're like, okay, you hear the director going, all right, let's have these cylindrical things flying around the screen. It'll make the experience really immersive. And the guy's just like, what are they? He's like, dude, I don't know. Let's just put them in. and so,
Yeah.
and so, and so, I mean, yeah. The thing is, when you see that sort of stuff, like, imagine if all the lasers in Star Wars didn't have a sound and they like made more sense. I mean, that would actually. I mean, I hate to say it, but that would actually remove a lot of immersion. Just because, I mean, now you're watching one of the emphasized points of the movie is like a bunch of Jedi are, like two Jedis are back to back, like knocking lasers away from them. Like,
Yeah.
if you have no sound there, you've all of a sudden dropped focus on the lasers, and you've damaged the immersive experience there. And I mean, so like you said with machines versus StarCraft, when in machines, if like a laser gun or something like the plasma cannons didn't like make the sound that they did, or the kind of pew pew piss chew sound that they do, it would kind of make it weird to be like, wait, why is this projectile I'm launching not making a sound like I would expect it to? And in StarCraft, the laser is kind of more of a constant thing, so you hear kind of a looping vibration, which, I mean, yeah, you would expect because lasers they're constantly hitting the ground. You wouldn't expect like a pew sound like played over like 20 times. It's kind of yeah, kind of that constant state versus impulsive state in whatever the sound that's going on is there. I guess yeah, it's a
Yeah,
question of
exactly.
what people would expect and what you're trying to communicate. Because
Hmm.
yeah, with Star Wars, they're not really it's not really realistic, but it's they're trying to communicate more realism than Machines was. I mean, Machines was kind of whatever the hell they felt like doing at the time. So, at least that's what it seems to be. So I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Also, you know what I just um thought of
Hmm.
when you talked about Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know what? You have these scenes where they fly around in these battle, not battle planes. What would you call these? These
And the TIE fighters?
starfighters.
Or...
Yeah, the TIE fighters.
Yeah.
And they fly around in outer space where there is no air that could actually vibrate.
Yeah.
So if the camera is actually outside, so like in let's just say call it in space. So if the microphone would be in space, then you would hear nothing. You would actually hear nothing because there's no air. So if you take machines, then you have some planets where like they are machines. Why they don't need air? So it makes sense that they are maybe on an asteroid, a
Yeah.
huge asteroid, or some starbase. But why do they actually have ventilation? Actually, but but then you have this setting. So if you want to be realistic, then the game should actually have no sound at all because there is no air.
Yeah.
So in this case, in this scenario, you already break the rules by having sound effects.
Yeah. They certainly break a lot of rules of realism, but yeah, they definitely there's definitely a community of not giving a shit about that in in Hollywood, which isn't problematic. I mean, honestly, I don't really care too much about realism either. I think whatever, I mean, ultimately, if somebody likes it, right? That's what I always think about in terms of realism. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so as well. And um, I think, for example, in machines or RTS in general, you have the unit voices. I mean, they are also pretty much sound effects.
Yeah.
So they give units more character. I mean,
Oh
if
yeah.
no unit actually had any voice, so you just select them and nothing happens, or they all sound the same, then okay, why does, for example, if we compare it to animals, why does let's say a dog-sized machine sound like an elephant-sized machine?
Yeah.
You would expect like the bigger machine to be like have a deeper voice
Yeah,
or
for sure.
or like grumpy, angry, maybe because the other thing is like a medic unit or maybe something like a builder unit, constructor unit, then you expect it to be talking like a constructor. Yeah. So uh starting the job or job is done and uh something like that, like the sound, the voice samples need to be different to make it believable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look at the most popular esport, like to bring up like realism again. I mean, StarCraft, every banshee is the same woman. Yeah, it makes no sense, but it adds character to that unit. You know, kind of makes you like, oh, this unit's pretty cool. I'm gonna keep using this unit. Kind of attaches you and makes you want to be better at a certain faction or using a certain unit or doing something. And I mean, yeah, I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot of fun, actually, to experience the unit voices. I mean, in something like Supreme Commander, where you have like hundreds of units, like I mean, it doesn't make too much sense to make them talk, and they don't, because you kind of are constantly selecting an army, and that's not really your focus. They do have human characters, kind of in the single player and like multiplayer taunts. But I mean, people in general, I think they don't really go to Supreme Commander for like a character experience. They go because they want to have like big map like strategic experience. Whereas like something like League or Dota, like the most popular games, people go to them, they experience everything. They're like, oh, players, there's some strategy, there's the ability for me to get into it without having to be like professional. I mean, like on the topic of like sound, obviously, just those like voice effects are pretty cool to experience. How like they express like what a character's thinking. Like if a character's about to charge in, they'll like scream something, or sometimes they'll even say something specific to a certain other character, like
Yeah.
Grengar and Kha'Zix, or Kunkka and Tidehunter, for example.
Yeah. Or if you have a character like Alchemist, where it's pretty much two characters in one, then they also talk to each other. So,
Yeah.
for example, if you charge one ability, which is a concoction, and if you don't throw it on an enemy, then it explodes on yourself,
Yeah.
and then the like the monster carrying the alchemist goes like, "Oh, it hurts," and the alchemist says, "Yeah, I told you to throw it." So they also talk to
Yeah,
each
I remember
other,
that.
and so in this case, you would need actually two different, well, in this case, voice actors or voices to make it believable that it's actually two characters. Because if you have two, in this case, two characters that are one character in the game, kind of, then if only one character would talk, then you think the other thing is kind of useless.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Unless it's like, I don't know, something. I mean, I guess there's also Nunu is like the League of Legends version of Alchemist. And I guess like Nunu doesn't really talk, he just grunts. So I mean, sorry, not Nunu, sorry. Nunu is the kid riding a Yeti. The Yeti doesn't say anything, he just kind of grunts, and he's like, obviously he's not a character, he's just like a thing on the side that doesn't really do anything other than hit people. so yeah, it's I mean, like in that example, you can see how like the ogre, I think he's an ogre in from Alchemist, is like more funny or interesting to listen to than like the Yeti, for example, because he doesn't really have any lines in League. So
And doesn't only grunt, at least.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I think character design and sound effects go hand in hand in this case.
yeah, for sure.
If you have a if you have a really bulky character, then you don't want it to sound like Barbie, except if you troll the players with your game, maybe then. But otherwise, if it's a serious game, then of course you want to make the sound effects fit the character.
Yeah, if your character is scary, then implement a scary voice, whether it be a giant, terrifying, like strong unit, or maybe it's a invisible unit and has like some sort of like spooky, I guess like sneaky sort of voice. I don't know, something like that. Like you typically want to emphasize different things in different ways, and one of them being sound effects, so or voice in this case. Yeah.
I would suggest to people that actually want to, or to people that are developing a game or that want to go into sound design. I think it's important to just get some experience on how other people are doing the sound effects, because like we talked about Star Wars and then lasers in video games. So people that watched Star Wars and they said, yeah, these lasers were really convincing. That's how a laser sounds like.
Yeah.
Then if you do it in a completely different way, then they might think, this doesn't sound like the laser I'm used to.
Yeah.
So I think in this case, you would need to know how others did it so you can do it in a correct way. Or even just zombies. I mean, zombies don't exist, and but they are always these grunting, mindless characters. Most of the time. Sometimes you have zombies with a character, but then they are just like groaning, like "Whoa." So uh, you would actually need to kind of make them that way, so people say that's a zombie.
Yeah, actually, on that topic, I think that there are actually a lot of games where if you look at the quality between like a low quality game and a high quality game, or at least in the case of the sound effects, a zombie might sound just stupid and unconvincing in one game, and you're like, all right, well, this sound is just annoying and not at all scaring me. But in the other game, like their growls might sound like horrible. They might be like soul grinding, even just based on like how well the person did it, and that's like why it's important to see how different people react to it. And obviously, like I'm not a sound designer, but I've seen if you listen to a lot of sound designers, they'll say things like, you know, I tested it on high quality speakers, low quality speakers, in my car, outside, and they like test their sounds everywhere after they record them to see, you know, how do they sound in different environments, and of course they'll, you know, see how other people react to them. Just yeah, so that they can get that kind of effect from the game, because that's what a game really is you're giving it, once you make a game and send it out, you're sending out an experience, and if you want people to experience it like in a certain way, then you would want to, you know, make all different aspects, including the sound effects. I guess what's the word? Employ or give off this sort of, you know, feeling that you're trying to give off.
I think that's actually a good point. To also think about what people are actually using to, well, hear the game.
Yeah.
If you can have the highest quality sound effects, and you maybe throw out a lot of money or invest a lot of money in sound effects, and then you have people using really terrible headphones, or maybe €5 2.0 speakers, then yeah, if they cannot play the sound quality, then it's just thrown out money, right?
Yeah.
Or let's say if you have a mobile game, and you might have the most epic sound effects or the most epic music, but people are probably going to play it without music on, except if they use headphones.
Exactly.
And maybe, well, because they use headphones, maybe it's not a good idea to use like 5.1 sound design, so where like sounds can come from behind or from the front, because yeah, nobody's gonna carry around 5 speakers and subwoofer.
Yeah, if you're making a game that,
hear it.
yeah, if you're making a game that you expect like somebody to play on, you know, like a $50 smartphone, then, you know, maybe if you if you're hiring like some studio to do like your sound design, maybe it's time to reconsider, because you know, people aren't gonna get too much impact off of that unless you're targeting, you know, a higher end phone that can actually process that sort of, or that sort of feeling, or you'll get players that are interested in that sort of feeling, because not everybody who's playing a mobile game is gonna. I mean, I know that I usually will turn the volume off even in a mobile game, so so like it's important to know, you know, what your target audience is in that regard, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess if you target PC players, then it's probably the least of a problem.
Yeah.
Because even cheap speakers can sound pretty good. But for example, if you develop for, let's say, an indie game for a console, then some televisions just sound like trash. The speakers are so bad. So of course I'm not saying, yeah, just if you're developing for console, then just use low quality sound effects. No, no, no. Of course, people have good televisions, or they hook up their speakers. So these guys might actually use 5.1 speakers
Yeah.
for your game.
Oh, yeah.
So you could actually use it as a feature. But yeah, what like I think just know your audience, you're targeting what they're using.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, you could just try it on a low-end TV too, and see. Does the sound good there? Because I mean, I think that's the best way if you have something to worry about. Yeah, honestly, with like just about any platform.
Maybe notebook, maybe a notebook speaker, like inbuilt speaker.
Yeah.
These are also not the best
Yeah.
quality speakers around, I think. But more and more people actually are replacing a normal computer with a notebook. So I think that's also maybe a good thing to test the sound with. If if you have explosions, but they sound really muffled on a notebook, maybe one needs to change the sound effect, or like make it a higher sound effect, or lower pitched sound effect, something like that, so it can actually kind of be played or heard more properly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, testing is one of the strongest ways, I think.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else concerning sound effects that you would like to mention?
I think we covered most of the stuff I was thinking about, actually.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, we talked about. Let's recap from our most recent topic this time. So we talked about like characters and monsters and items and weapons, and how people have expectations for the sound, and so that people always, well, not always, but they relate it to their real life experience.
Yeah.
So I mean, people probably have heard an explosion, and they probably heard the humming of maybe electricity or something like that. So yeah, we just mentioned how important it is to kind of meet the expectation of the player, and how sound effects and voice samples actually give character to units, to characters in the game. Even in, I think, if you think about RTS, then you probably don't think, yeah, voice samples. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. Also, we kind of talked about that sounds don't need to be realistic. They just need to fit what you're trying to
present. Yeah.
Present to the player. I guess that's it for sound effects.
Yeah.
And then before that, we talked about music, how it sets the atmosphere for maybe horror games, and how it gives more character to faction and races in strategy games, how it can kind of give you a rush in action games, etc. So the different functions of music in a game, and how you can actually use different themed music to fit your scenario, as well as music actually being a pull factor for players or people that actually don't know about your game, that hear the soundtrack of your game and then say, okay, I like that, I want to hear more about it. or I want to know more about the game. I want to hear more of the music, and that's why they might actually buy your game. And then in the end, we also talked about esport games and how it actually impacts the spectator experience. So, like battle music, actually, well, kind of giving more feeling of there being action in the game. So you kind of get more feel about the game, or even if nothing is happening, that it kind of bridges the time until something happens.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for today, I guess.
Yeah.
What I would like to ask our listeners is please post a comment with your favorite soundtracks, or maybe soundtracks where you think these soundtracks really fit that game. These fit the atmosphere, or like I said, favorite soundtrack where you just say, okay, I don't even want to play. I don't need to play the game. I just want to listen to that soundtrack.
Yeah. And also, I think if you've played any of the games we talked about, or like the soundtrack out of any of them, then like let us know. And before we're done, I have to do a quick plug and say Homeworld and Homeworld 2 had amazing soundtracks. And with that, I think that is my opinion, my final opinion.
That's your final opinion.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I already gave enough examples of soundtracks I really like. So then let's finish it for today. Then that was episode 5 of the D League, and I hope you will tune in again next week. And don't forget to comment.
Yeah. See you guys next week.
See ya.